I have here 12 books coming out in October, November and December this year, about which I am excited and I hope you will be too. The first is The Midnight Table by Bora Chung, which is translated by Anton He from Korean. Bora Chung wrote Cursed Bunny, which I believe was her first work to be translated into English and is a collection of short stories. This is a novel, and it is a novel formed of ghost stories, and if you've been around in this channel for any length of time, you'll know how much I love a ghost story. In a labyrinthine research facility where those who open the wrong door might find it's disappeared behind them, or that the echoing footsteps they're running from are their own, an unnamed protagonist begins their night shift under the watchful eye of the building's enigmatic senior guard. Each evening, as the fluorescent lights hum and the silence grows heavier, the guard shares another story. Of cursed objects hidden behind security glass, of lives unspooled by vengeance, sorrow, or revelation. These tales are not mere ghost stories, they are warnings, or perhaps confessions. As the nights stretch on and reality frays, the protagonist starts to suspect that the building itself is alive with malevolent intent, that the objects aren't just cursed, but watching, waiting. So it's a haunted house story based on storytelling, kind of Scheherazade style, and it sounds like it's going to be perfectly creepy. I know that Bora Chung has written stories that are kind of like gross body horror, dealing with like bodily fluids, so that might be the vibe here, but I'm definitely excited to read this one for spooky season. Next we have a Fitzcarraldo edition, and you know how I feel about those covers. This is Big Kiss Bye Bye by Claire Louise Bennett, and it has a middle-aged protagonist, and I am definitely looking to read more books by people older than me, or about people older than me, rather than people in their 20s and 30s. And it is a meditation on the nature of intimacy, time and yearning, and we all love a bit of yearning. The things that hold life in place have been lifted off and put away. Uprooted by circumstances from city to deep countryside, a woman lives in temporary limbo, visited by memories of all she's left behind. The most insistent are those of Xavier, who has always been certain he knows her better than anyone, better than she knows herself. Xavier, whom she still loves but no longer desires, a displacement he has been unable to accept. An unexpected letter from an old acquaintance brings back a torrent of others she's loved or wanted. Each has been her match, a mismatch, a liberation, and a threat to her very sense of self. And John McGregor wrote, Bennett's language is an ornate and long-winded riposte to all those pared-back minimalists, and I love it. And I, too, am looking for a riposte to those minimalists, the sense that style is only to be found from removing everything of worth from your sentence. So I think this sounds like it's going to be lovely, very still, very moving. Next we have The Four Spent the Day Together by Chris Kraus, who wrote I Love Dick, which is a book that I heard a lot of people talking about, but it's not one that I have read. This description intrigued me. It is about the investigation of a murder, but I think not in a detective sense. On the Iron Range of northern Minnesota at the end of the last decade, 3 teenagers shot and killed an older acquaintance after spending the day with him. In a cold, run-down town, the 3 young people were quickly arrested and imprisoned. No one knows why they did it. At the time of the murder, Kat Green and her husband Paul Garcia are living nearby in a house they'd bought years earlier as a summer escape from Los Angeles. Undergoing a period of personal turmoil, moving between LA and Minnesota, between the urban art world and rural poverty of the icy Iron Range, Kat turns away from her own life and towards the murder case, which soon becomes an obsession. In an attempt to pierce through the mystery surrounding the murder and to understand the teenagers' lives, Kat finds herself travelling back through the idiosyncratic, aspirational lives of her parents in the working-class Bronx and small-town blue-collar Milford, Connecticut. I think this sounds really interesting. Working class lives is another theme that I am interested in exploring, and this writer has been very well praised. Next we have The Morgue Keeper by Ruyan Meng, and when I was looking at books coming out for the end of the year, I had already put this aside as one that I was interested in, and then Michelle, who I follow on Instagram, who is Sunday Book Club, something like that, I will leave linked in the description. She reviewed this and said how wonderful it was, so that solidified that I definitely want to read it soon. In 1966, as a brutal revolution grips a city, morgue keeper Qingyan spends his nights cleaning bodies in silence, until a viciously murdered woman, known only as Number 19, shatters his routine. He becomes entangled in an existential quest to uncover the truth behind her fate. Today, the rapid rise of authoritarianism around the world, with its threats of state control and political persecution, gives plenty of reason for concern in the US, and plenty of reason to speculate on what is soon to come. The future Ruyan Meng ventures in Memoir Keeper. Her relentless, scintillating debut novel is a unique one drawn from historical precedent and from experience itself. So it sounds like it is a dystopian novel, but set in the past, based on the Cultural Revolution in China, all of which sounds really intriguing to me. I am looking for more dystopian novels that are sort of slower and less world-building, that are more like thought-provoking, like Pink Slime by Fernanda Melchor. And this one sounds like it could be something similar. Next we have Saltwash by Andrew Michael Hurley, who has been described as the master of menace, which definitely sounds like something I want to be reading towards the end of the year. Something menacing and dark. I think a lot of these are quite spooky. The dilapidated seaside town of Saltwash isn't a place that Tom Shift would have chosen to come at all, let alone on such a bleak November afternoon. But his new friend, Oliver Keel, has insisted on meeting for dinner at the Castle Hotel, where the owners, the Paleys, try their best to cling on to the glory days. Both terminally ill, Tom and Oliver have been bound by the saddest of circumstances, and they have found some solace in writing to one another via pen pal schemes set up by their respective cancer clinics. So far, their friendship has been conducted solely through letters, with Oliver proving himself to be a treasury of literary quips and quotes. Yet for all his flamboyance and verbosity, he is guarded, and Tom suspects that he is lonely and nomadic. And Oliver sees Tom for what he is, a man haunted by guilt and desperate to try and atone in some way before it's too late. Regret is what brings the others to the castle. Much to Tom's surprise, dozens more guests appear, dressed in their finest, to take part in a prize draw that offers one person the chance of deliverance from their remorse. But does everyone deserve the opportunity? So it sounds like it's going to be a lot more character-focused, introspective horror, with something creepy and unexpected going on, which is exactly my taste. Then A Stranger Comes to Town by Lynn Sharon Schwartz, which is a psychological novel about memory and identity. This is the one I'm probably the least sure of on this list, but I definitely want something sort of thrilling and psychological and kind of thinky and uncomfortable to read at the moment, and this one sounded like it could be that. What is the last thing you remember? This is the question posed to Joe Marzino after being found on a sidewalk, knocked down by a bicycle on Columbus Avenue, 1 block from New York Central Park. Joe remembers nothing, not even his own name. He wakens into the world with only the clothes on his back, a throbbing pain in his left ankle, and more questions than answers. So that's a very limited description of what this book is. Just this man who wakes up not knowing who he is. But I'm intrigued at the ways that it could turn. Next we have a book that is entirely different, but I have enjoyed cozy crime in the past, but I like Agatha Christie. That's what I mean by I've enjoyed cozy crime, simply, purely Agatha Christie. And I know that detective novels are a big deal in Japan, and there are a lot of them that I have been told to try, but these ones coming out are really well loved in Japan, and this is the Samurai Detective series, Volume 1, by Shotari Ikanami, which have been translated by Yui Kajita. And these are a landmark of Japanese historical fiction, so they are detective novels set in the samurai period of Japan. It has been half a year since Akiyama Daijiro became a samurai, half a year since he left his father Kohei, once the most skilled swordsman in the land, to set up his own blade school by the cool of the river. Ever since, amid the swaying bamboo groves, he waits patiently for his first disciple. But his serenity is soon disrupted by the visit of a mysterious samurai with an unhonourable offer. In exchange for a vast sum of gold, he must attack and injure the daughter of the shogun's most senior counsellor. Troubled by the proposal, Daijiro, alongside his father and Mifuyu, a female warrior without match, soon set into the underworld of Edo-era Japan to uncover the conspiracy before quickly finding themselves embroiled in a series of increasingly perilous adventures. So it sounds like it's going to be really intriguing and interesting. I don't know if it's quite detective. I think maybe I was mistaken there by the fact it's called The Samurai Detectives, but it sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun at the very least. Next we have a collection of short stories, The Unrepentant by Sharmiri Aphrodite. I don't normally talk about short stories in these kinds of videos, but this collection is about the Malaya Emergency, which is a period of time in which I'm really interested in learning more about, and I think short stories can be an interesting way in. In Malaya, present-day Malaysia and Singapore, when the British imposed the emergency to crush leftists and independence movements, the insurgents fought back with ingenuity and ferocity. The Unrepentant tells the stories of these insurgents, who loved, doubted, grieved, and hungered amid a revolution. A guerrilla draws a priest into the cause, a translator debates the language of revolution, a tin miner falls in love, a brother aspires to be Malaysia's first cosmonaut, an exile returns home. From the tropical night of the jungle to shophouse flats, in which the war for Malayan liberation was imagined and fought, These intimate stories span the 1940s to the 2010s and challenge archival perspectives of the period, blurring the borders between fiction and fact, history and memory, braiding together the diverse perspectives of Chinese and Malay communists, Tamil estate labourers, third world movie makers and leftist Christian movements. This sounds really, really interesting and definitely a perspective I want to read from. Next we have Flat Earth by Anika Jade Levy, and it was a review from GQ that made me want to read this because I got severe FOMO. It said, not to be missed if you want to keep up with the literary zeitgeist, which I do. I mean, I'm not very good at it, but it is that hooked me and made me want to read this, even if the description doesn't sound like super appealing. I'm assuming that it's going to be very well written or interestingly written. So whoever wrote that review at GQ, well done, you did your job. Avery is flailing financially and emotionally, struggling with graduate school and the collection of cultural reports she is supposed to be writing. She dates older men for money and others for the oblivion their egos offer. In desperation, she takes a job at a right-wing dating app. Meanwhile, her wealthy best friend Frances drops out of grad school, gets married, and somehow still manages to finish an experimental documentary about rural isolation and right-wing conspiracy theories. Frances's triumphant return to New York as the toast of the art world sends Avery into a tailspin, pushing her to make a series of dangerous decisions. So this could be boring, navel-gazy, pretentious, or it could be thrilling, cutting, and very interesting. So I'm interested, I want to know which side of the line it falls on. And I definitely want to read it. Then The Wax Child by Olga Ravin, which is translated by Martin Aiken. Olga Ravin wrote The Employees, I think it's called, which is another book that I've been really meaning to read because everyone who's read it seems to rave about it. But this is her next book. And it is a short story about witch trials in 17th century Denmark, which sounds right up my street. The 17th century is one of my favourite time periods to read historical fiction about, and I want to read more of it, and witch trials as well. I know they are such a stereotype, but when done well, they are really interesting. Based on a real-life 17th century Danish witch trial, The Wax Child tells in vivid prose the story of Christiane Krokov, a noble woman long pursued by a scandal of sorcery. People whisper that in her wake one finds illness, death, and unsettling behaviour by pigs and cats. Some even say she once fashioned out of a wax child an instrument of the most sinister magic. Christiane will flee the rumours to Aalborg, that great city of seawater and mist. But even there, suspicion and fear rule, and once a rumour of witchcraft has taken hold, it can be proved hard to shake. And I love things set in isolated locations, even though this is a city, a misty saltwater city. It sounds so atmospheric, and it has been praised by so many people. This one I definitely want to read as soon as it comes out. I don't think it's on NetGalley, unfortunately. Next we have Bad Bad Girl by Gish Jen, and this one seems to be like quite strange and experimental, and I wasn't sure whether I wanted to read it or not, but I was so intrigued, even if I wasn't sure I was going to love it. This synopsis really intrigued me. Growing up in an affluent neighbourhood in 1930s Shanghai, Liu Shuxin is told that it is no good for a girl to be smart. And yet when rumours of the revolution reach their enclave, she is the one sent abroad for an education. In New York, she meets Chao Pei, a Chinese engineering student, and they set out to make a life together. By the time their daughter, Gish Jen, is born, her parents have only sporadic contact with their families, who are locked in repressive Maoist China. And in her struggle to discipline her American daughter, Liu Shuxin finds herself repeating the punishing refrains, "Bad, bad girl, you don't know how to talk," that punctured her own childhood. Yeah, so it sounds interesting. So there's a character called Gish Jen, and it's about her mother, but I guess a fictionalized version of her mother. The synopsis sounded like something that I've read a lot of, but this is described as being by one of America's greatest stylists, so I'm hoping it's done in a more interesting way than some of the others I have read. And then finally, the only one from a writer I've read from before is One Aladdin, Two Lamps by Jeanette Winterson. I have only read Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, which is of course her most famous work, and I really, really loved her style and the voice with which she writes, so I wanted to read more, and this is her work coming out at the end of this year. With her execution looming, a woman is fighting for her life. Every night she tells a story, every morning she lives one more day. One Aladdin, Two Lamps cracks open the legendary story of Scheherazade in 1001 Nights to reveal new questions and answers we're still thinking about today. Who should we trust? Is love the most important thing in the world? Does it matter whether you are honest? In her guise as Aladdin, the orphan who changes his world, Jeanette Winterson asks us to reread what we think we know and look again at how fiction works in our lives, giving us the courage to change our own narratives and alter endings we wish to subvert. As a young working-class woman with no obvious future beyond factory work or marriage, Winterson realised through the power of books she could read herself as fiction as well as fact. Weaving together fiction, magic and memoir, this remarkable book is a tribute to the age-old tradition of storytelling. And I do enjoy books about storytelling. It sounds like it could be a bit twee, but I'm hoping in Jeanette Winterson's hands it won't be. Those are the 12 books coming out at the end of this year about which I am most interested and excited. Do let me know if I have missed any in the comments down below. Are there any books coming out that you think I would love? And thank you very much for watching. If you are new here, my name's Roisin, and I will see you again very soon. Bye bye!